The year 1969 wasn't just a good year for muscle cars, it was the absolute peak of the horsepower wars. Today, we aren't looking at 0 to 60 times or inflated brochure horsepower figures. We're ranking the top 10 kings of the street based on verified quarter-mile drag strip times. From dealer-installed 427s to NASCAR homologation specials, these are the fastest machines Detroit ever built. Number 10 is the car that most people forget until they see its taillights fading in the distance, the 1969 AMC AMX. While Ford and Chevy were fighting over who had the biggest back seat, American Motors did something radical. They took their Javelin, chopped 12 inches out of the wheelbase, threw the rear seats in the dumpster, and stuffed a massive 390 cubic inch V8 under the hood. This wasn't a pony car, it was a two-seater Corvette fighter for half the price. With 315 horsepower in a car shorter than a Volkswagen Beetle, the AMX was twitchy, dangerous, and fast. It hit the quarter mile in 14.3 seconds. Culturally, this was the rebel's choice, the car you bought if you hated the big three and didn't care about comfort. But sadly, Americans wanted back seats more than they wanted a quirky two-seater, and the AMX faded into obscurity. Today, it's a rare gem that commands serious respect at auctions, proving that AMC was right all along. At number 9, we have a car that legally shouldn't have existed. In 1969, GM had a strict corporate edict: no engines bigger than 400 cubic inches in mid-sized cars. The Chevelle, the GTO, the 442, they were all capped, but Oldsmobile found a loophole. They claimed these cars were being shipped to an outside company, Hearst, for modification. In reality, Olds was stuffing massive 455 cubic inch engines into them right on the assembly line. The result was the 1969 Hearst Olds. It packed 380 horsepower at a stump-pulling 500 foot-pounds of torque. It ran a 14.06 in the quarter, earning it the nickname the Gentleman's Hot Rod. It had gold stripes, a chaotic dual-gate shifter that let you bang gears manually, and a mail slot hood scoop that looked like it wanted to eat the road. It was the ultimate executive express, fast enough to scare a Corvette, but comfortable enough to drive to a board meeting. Number 8 is arguably the most famous face of 1969, the Pontiac GTO Judge. By '69, the GTO was losing sales to the cheaper Plymouth Roadrunner, and Pontiac needed a gimmick, so they took a budget concept, painted it carousel red, slapped on some tacky decals, and named it after a skit on Laugh-In. Critics called it a cartoon. Then they drove it. If you ticked the box for the Ram Air 4 engine, you got a high-revving round-port beast that was underrated at 370 horsepower. With 4.33 gears out back, this neon orange billboard could scream down the track in 13.90 seconds. It proved that you could look ridiculous and still be the king of the drive-in. But here's the kicker. Most Judges were sold with the weaker Ram Air 3. Finding a real Ram Air 4 today is like finding a needle in a haystack, and if you do, bring your checkbook, because they trade for 6 figures. At number 7, we have the Mopar for the guy who wore a suit to the drag strip, the Plymouth GTX. While the Roadrunner was cheap and tinny, the GTX was heavy, luxurious, and refined. But don't let the wood grain dash fool you. Standard power was the Super Commando 440 Big Block. It was an absolute torque monster. Even with the heavy luxury options, it ran a 13.70 flat. This was the car that taught teenagers a hard lesson: never bet against the old guy in the quiet Plymouth. It represented a time when you didn't have to sacrifice comfort for speed, a concept that died when the insurance companies stepped in a few years later. Today, the GTX is often overshadowed by the Roadrunner, making it a fantastic sleeper investment for the serious collector. Just edging out the Plymouth at number 6 is the Ford Mustang Mach 1. 1969 was the year the Mustang got aggressive. It got longer, lower, and meaner. The Mach 1 was the bread-and-butter performance model, but if you ordered the 428 Cobra Jet, you were driving a legend. This engine was rated at 335 horsepower, which was a total lie. It was closer to 400. Car Life magazine wrestled one to a 13.69 second quarter mile. The Mach 1 was crucial because it democratized speed. You didn't need to know a secret dealer code to buy one. You just walked into Ford, slapped down $3,500, and drove out sideways. It was the peak of the pony car wars, but ironically, the sheer number of them produced means they are still attainable today compared to the rare Shelby models. Now we enter the 13-second club with number 5, the Dodge Charger 500. Not the Daytona with the big wing, that came later, but the 500. Dodge built this car for one reason. The standard Charger front end was like a brick, and it was losing NASCAR races. So they flushed out the grille and streamlined the rear window. On the street, equipped with the legendary 426 Hemi, it was a terror. The Hemi was finicky, it hated cold starts, it fouled spark plugs in traffic, and it cost as much as a small house, but when the light turned green, it breathed fire. It ran a 13.48. This car is the reason Mopar fanatics are so loyal today. It wasn't a car, it was an engine with a seat attached. Only a few hundred were made, making it one of the rarest Chargers in existence. At number 4, we have the most controversial car on this list, the Ford Mustang Boss 429. Ford built this engine to fight the Hemi in NASCAR, but they had to sell 500 street cars to make it legal. The engine was so wide, they had to hire a company called CarCraft to hack up the Mustang's shock towers just to fit it in. Here's the twist most people miss. On the street, it was actually kind of a dog. The intake ports were the size of tennis balls, meaning it had no low-end torque. A small block Chevy could beat it off the line. But if you swapped the gears and revved it to the moon, it woke up. With the right driver, it clocked a 13.34. It's the rarest, most expensive Mustang ever made. But ironically, the slower Cobra Jet was probably better for stoplight-to-stoplight racing. Top 3, and things are getting serious. In 1969, you couldn't officially buy a Chevelle with a 427. Chevy said no, but a few dealers like Don Yanko used the Central Office Production Order (COPO) system, usually used for ordering fleet taxis, to sneak 427 racing engines into plain Chevelles. This brings us to number 3, the COPO Chevelle. This was the COPO 9562. It looked like nothing. No stripes, no SS badges, just dog dish hubcaps and a 425 horsepower L72 big block. It ran a 13.30. It was the ultimate sleeper. You'd pull up next to a grandma in a Malibu, look over, and suddenly realize the car was idling like a tractor. By the time you realized what it was gone. These cars are the holy grail for Chevy fans because they represent the engineers rebelling against corporate management. Number 2 is the working man's hero, the Plymouth Roadrunner A12. Midway through 1969, Plymouth decided the Hemi was too expensive and too complicated. They wanted raw, stupid power. So they took the 440 engine and put 3 2-barrel Holy carburetors on top, the 6-pack. Then they took the hood off and replaced it with a lift-off fiberglass piece held on by 4 pins, no hinges. You literally had to lift the hood off and put it on the grass to check the oil. It had plain black steel wheels and no hubcaps, and it ran. Legendary drag racer Ronnie Sox piloted a stock A12 to a 12.91 second quarter mile. It was faster than the Hemi on the street, cheaper than the Hemi, and it looked like a taxi that had been in a bar fight. It was the best bang for the buck muscle car ever built. And finally, the number 1 fastest American muscle car of 1969, the King, the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. This wasn't just a car, it was a loophole in the matrix. Fred Gibb, a dealer in Illinois, used the COPO system to order 69 Camaros with an all-aluminum 429 engine designed for Can-Am racing. The engine weighed 500 pounds, same as a small block, but it made over 500 horsepower, despite Chevy conservatively rating it at 430. The price was $7,200, which was double the price of a standard Camaro. Most of them sat on dealer lots unsold because nobody could afford them. But on the track, Superstock magazine put a set of headers and slicks on one and ran a 12.59 second. In 1969, that is supercar territory today. It stands alone as the absolute peak of American naturally aspirated power. If 1969 was the party, 1970 was the hangover. By 1971, insurance companies realized these cars were killing kids and they hiked premiums by 50%. The EPA stepped in with smog pumps and unleaded gas lowered compression ratios. The 1969 Camaro ZL1, the A12 Roadrunner, the Boss 429, they were the dinosaurs right before the asteroid hit. They were loud, inefficient, dangerous, and absolutely magnificent. And that is why 50 years later, we're still talking about them. Which one of these would you park in your garage? Are you a Mopar A12 guy, or do you take the ZL1? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this trip back to '69, hit that subscribe button. We've got a deep dive on the 1970 horsepower crash coming up next. Thanks for watching.